Everyone behave. This is my last meeting.
Oh, Judy.
So don't make anything crazy.
Now you've tempted me.
Okay, we are ready to go. We are live on YouTube and the public line is connected, so we're ready to go.
Thank you. All right. Good morning, everybody. It is 9:02, and I would like to call to order the meeting of the Transportation Committee of Thursday, December 15th. Before we begin, please note this meeting is live streamed on YouTube and recorded. Members of the public are encouraged to watch and listen to the meeting online or by dialing into 415-569-6446 for the audio of this meeting. If you would like to provide public comment at today's meeting, and if you haven't done so already, please call 415-569-6446 and let the facilitator know what items you would like to speak on today. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Thank you and good morning, everyone. Starting with Director Maston.
Here.
Director Rabbit. Not here yet. Director Rodoni.
Here.
Director Snyder.
Here.
Director Thier.
Here.
Vice Chair Hill.
Here.
Chair Arnold.
Here.
And President Theriault.
Here.
Thank you. You have a quorum. You are also a committee of the whole. On the line, you also have directors Cochran, Conroy, Garbarino, Grosbull, and Hernandez and Parr. So you are definitely a committee of the whole. I'm going to confirm staff really quickly. Dennis Mulligan.
Here.
Joe Wire.
Yes.
Ava Bauer-Furbish.
Present.
Kim Manolius.
Morning.
Thank you. Good morning. I don't believe Madeline's on the line. Is Madeline on the line? I don't believe so. Dave Rivera.
Good morning, President.
Mona Babauta.
Present.
Jim Swindler.
Present.
And Kelly Hopper.
Present.
Thanks, Kelly. That confirms staff on the line. We also have David Davenport and Ron Downing who are on the line as well. They are going to be presenting today's item. So I'm going to turn it back over to you.
All right, thank you. I would like to remind everyone to mute their microphones until after staff's presentation, and remember to unmute when we open up for directors' discussions. If we have directors calling in by phone, please use your mute button or *6 to unmute yourself. After staff's presentation, I will be asking for any questions or comments on the item. Click on the raise hand function if you have a question, or press *9 if joining by phone. If there are any questions, the secretary or I will call on you accordingly. If we missed your raised hand, please speak up. After our discussion, we will ask for any public comment before moving on. Please follow along by referring to the page numbers on the bottom right-hand corner of your meeting packet. Madam Secretary, please introduce the first item.
Thank you, Chair Arnold. We're going to start with agenda item number 3, and it's an informational report regarding the district's advisory committees. The report's located from pages 3 to 44 of your packet, and staff is available to answer any questions from directors. So at this time, I'll turn it back to any directors who have a question.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from directors regarding item 3? Raise your hand, and if we don't see, call out.
I don't see any hands up.
Okay. All right, so this concludes discussion on this item. Madam Secretary, is there anyone from the public wishing to speak on item 3?
I do not have any speakers for this item.
Okay, thank you. No action is required for item 3. Madam Secretary, please continue to the next item.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh.
I just saw the name pop up. Hang on a second. I do have a speaker on this one. David Pilpel would like to speak on this item.
All right, please, go ahead.
David, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Great. David Pilpaul from San Francisco. Just one brief follow-up. I got distracted in the last month from my work on potential rules of order for PBAC and perhaps all four district advisory committees. I will pick up that work and communicate with the district secretary's office or Dave Rivera. I'll find the appropriate staff person to share that work, so that might help with the organization of PBAC. Thanks very much.
Okay. Anyone else? No? Okay. This concludes discussion, and we've heard from the public. So I want to thank you. No action is required for item 3. Madam Secretary, please continue to the next item.
Thank you. We're going to move on to item number 4, and this is a big one. It's to adopt the final short-range transit plan for the regional bus, ferry, and paratransit service prepared for the Metropolitan Transportation Commission for fiscal years 2022-2023 through 2027-2028. That staff report begins on page 45, and there's actually a supplemental attachment, which was pretty thick, so we didn't include it in any of the packets, but the report's entitled Final Short Range Transit Plan, and that's available on the district's website. Director of Planning, Ron Downing, is here to introduce the report and kick us off. So Ron, I'm going to turn it to you.
Thank you, Amaret. Good morning, Chair Arnold, members of the committee. We have taken many short-range transit plans to the board over the year. They are a requirement of the Metropolitan Transportation Commission to ensure that we continue to receive transit funding as allocated by MTC. This one is a little bit different this year. The requirements are not the usual ones. And David Davenport, principal planner on my staff, has been the primary analyst on this SRTP this year that's coming before you to consider a recommendation for the board to adopt it. David is a principal planner, and I'm going to turn it over to David to outline what is different in this year's SRTP. And then I believe Dennis wants to offer some additional perspective after David is done. So David, are you there? Yes.
Yes, thanks, Ron. Good morning, everyone. As Ron mentioned, before you today is an item to adopt the short-range transit plan, which will run for 5 years from fiscal years 2022/23 through 27/28. Also, as mentioned, this is a requirement by MTC, and it's to fulfill federal funding mandates. And the district prepares SRTPs on a regular schedule so that we can continue receiving funding for our transit operations. Typically, SRTPs are completed every 2 years or so, but because of the COVID-19 pandemic, it's actually been about 3 years and 3 months since you last saw this item come to the board. The SRTP shows the state of the transit services that the district operates. Includes some information on its history and structure, as well as recent transit performance, the current status of our transit system, as well as how it compares to pre-pandemic levels. And it also wraps up with a future service plan. As I mentioned, the SRTP covers the district's transit services, so that includes bus, ferry, and paratransit. And it does not include any of the bus service that we run for Marin Transit or BART under contract, because Marin Transit and BART are obligated to prepare their own SRTPs. Unlike previous short-range transit plans, this update focuses on an operating plan and does not include a capital improvement program like past SRTPs did. MTC has reimagined the short-range transit plan process this time to reflect a lot of the instability, if you will, in the public transit industry as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Also, unlike previous SRTPs, this reimagined approach includes 3 future funding scenarios that are dictated by MTC. And they created these scenarios for us to analyze to help them have an apples to apples comparison of transit agencies across the Bay Area should certain funding thresholds be met. Unfortunately, in our case, it appears that the three scenarios don't really match up with the reality of our financial situation. So district staff created a fourth scenario for analysis of the next 5 years. And this scenario is consistent with the district projection that was shared with the board 2 months ago, back in October. The district scenario provides that consistency and shows a more realistic picture of our transit operating conditions moving forward based on current and anticipated budget conditions. On that note, I believe Dennis would like to discuss some of what really is in the district projection so that you have a better understanding of what is before you. And Dennis?
Yeah, thank you, David. First off, I want to say staff recommends that you approve this before you today, so MTC will keep sending us monies to operate our bus and ferry system. That's the biggest takeaway. I want to commend MTC for creating extra work for staff with these three scenarios. And I commend them because they recognize there's a fiscal cliff, a dire one actually for us and about a half dozen other agencies, such as BART, SFMTA, which operates Muni, Caltrain, WIDA, and AC Transit. And so MTC crafted these three scenarios that they want each agency to use, even though they probably don't work for any agency in the Bay Area, just so they have a consistent metric so they can take the data and use it to advocate for a solution for the fiscal cliff. And so the Bridge District is working very actively with MTC, with our fellow transit agencies in the Bay Area, and a scheme is being put together to pursue some funding starting next year. And so that's why it's important that we went through the exercise with these three scenarios. As David said, the fourth scenario reflects where we are today. We're adding back transit service as our customers return. We're not running empty buses or empty boats because that's bad for the environment, and we would burn through that one-time federal COVID relief money quickly. So when customers come back, we add service. We added two additional ferry trips in October. Right now, this time of year, things are kind of quiet because of weather. We don't anticipate to see the next uptick till after the first of the year. But that's a little different than how others are doing it. So we put together the fourth scenario that mirrors what your CFO, Joe Wire, presented to you in terms of our financial forecasts. And so we wanted MTC to have that also with the mix of stuff. And several other transit agencies did the same thing where they said, these three scenarios are great, but they're really not where we're at right now. So here's an extra scenario. So MTC knows that that is what we'll be submitting. And like I said, we'll continue to work with them and the other transit agencies very aggressively early next year as we approach the legislature for additional funding, one-time funding, to help transit agencies bridge the current gap we have coming up in the next couple of years with our fiscal cliffs until such time as the Bay Area has some sort of regional measure that goes before voters for transportation, likely in 2026. So with that, staff is available to answer any questions you may have on this report. I want to thank all the staff that worked on it. David Davenport, Ron Downing, staff, Mona's team at Bus, Jim's team at Ferry, as well as our CFO, Joe Wire, and his team in crafting these scenarios and putting together information that will be used for advocacy for the region to get additional transit operating money for bus and ferry service. Thank you.
Dennis, just a quick question. What do you want MTC to do with your fourth one?
We want them to be cognizant of when we think our fiscal cliff hits based on one set of assumptions, just so they have the information, so that they don't understate or overstate when it happens. But we appreciate why they want to have consistent scenarios among all transit operators, just so they can roll things up a couple different ways. And so they know we're doing it. A few other agencies are also doing it, and they're comfortable with that. And they look forward to your approval and receipt of this, like I said, so we can keep getting MTC's money to operate our bus and ferry system.
Okay. Anyone here said, all right, thank you. All right, any questions, comments from the directors?
I did have one question. This is Dick.
Hi, Dick. How are you?
Good. I notice on page 38, there's a section on passenger complaints, and I realize this is a very small part of this report, but And I understand why we had those complaints, but of course, some of them had to deal with service. Do you sense that we have addressed most of those complaints on service, or are there still a couple of areas we haven't started back the service yet where still people are complaining?
No, I think we have addressed them. We've added back a fair amount of service in this, particularly in the last year on bus and ferry. We just operated the dreaded triangle between Sausalito and Tiburon. We didn't have service coming from the San Anselmo hub. We didn't have service from Southern Marin. So we've added, a fair amount of service. But like I said, we don't want to run empty buses. A lot of the complaints dealt with overcrowding on buses during the pandemic, in the early days of the pandemic. If we can remember back to then, before vaccines and everything, we'd had limits on our buses. And so we did have overcrowding. We did pass people up. And that was really, a big driver of complaints in the first 2 years of the pandemic.
And just on a positive note, I noticed on the front 37, the mechanical failure rate really improved these last 3 years. So nice going. So
Thank you.
All right.
thank you.
Yes. All right. Director Rodoni.
Good morning. Just wondered if staff could tell me if this 5-year plan can be revisited at any time, annually, or some other approach.
Certainly. Staff will revisit our 5-year plan every year for the next year. So we, historically did one every year. We stopped during the pandemic because of the tremendous uncertainty. So when Joe came to the board a couple months ago, it's with the thought that we will do that annually to reflect our conditions. And then our board president will be embarking upon a strategic financial planning process starting next year. We'll deal with some of the challenges that we face.
Thank you.
Hey, Director Maston.
Good morning. I'm glad Dave mentioned scenario 4, because one of my comments was going to be, this looks awfully rosy to me compared to where we've been lately. So I'll go back and take a look and withhold that comment for now. But on page, page 38 of the SRTP, I suspect it's not big numbers, but the number of no-shows and late cancellations is trending upwards. Do we know why, and can we reverse that?
I'll say that this is an ongoing challenge for our paratransit service. And it's something that we've tried addressing through customer education, because this is really a customer-driven metric, but it does have an effect on the performance of our paratransit service. So it's at the top of the list of things that we've been working to address in paratransit. And my feel from discussing with staff here at the district is that the pandemic has had a factor in this number being higher as people have last minute changes of plans due to sickness or other conditions.
Okay.
I might add that the district's paratransit service is provided under an agreement we have with Marin Transit. Then Marin Transit outsources it. And we do that so a customer has one phone number to call or one place to go to schedule a trip, whether they're staying within the county or leaving the county. So it's worked well historically, but a lot of paratransit operators have been struggling coming out of the pandemic, as David mentioned, because of those changes, and also with staffing challenges that a lot of paratransit operators are having. A lot of people left that workforce. A lot of the operators were older, and so I know that they are going through, hiring and training challenges also.
All right, thank you.
Director Hill.
Thank you. Somebody got ahead of me, but I wanted to compliment the staff for the 4th option, given that we are unique in our options for collecting revenue and the different structure we have. And I think that was very insightful. I just wanted to compliment all of you. Thank you.
All right, and Holly Tier.
Thank you, Chair Arnold. I just wanted to start by commending staff on the report. I'm not going to try to name everybody, but we get these reports regularly, and I just wanted to acknowledge how much work goes into producing something as professional and covering all the issues. So I really wanted to give a big shout out to staff for this report. I also wanted to echo my colleagues' comments with respect to the fourth option. I won't repeat those comments, but I think it's a very welcome one. In addition, I wanted to call out section 3.4.2 on page 50, that is equity considerations, and say that I was very pleased to see this, and also to see that there will be further policy development on this in the future. I think as we come out of the pandemic, this is going to be a critical area to ensure that transportation is provided for everyone at a level that they can afford. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Anyone else? Raise your hand. Do you see anything, Madam Secretary? Any hands going up? Okay.
I see no hands going up.
All right. Okay. And I just, well, first of all, this concludes the discussion on the item. I want to say that yes, this number 4 was a brilliant addition to this. I think that those of us who are with the public every day have seen really what the COVID has done to people, and it isn't just physical, it's mental, it's there. And it has changed our way of doing things, and this you all have seen it in spades, and I think you're doing a great job in trying to find the way to get back, although it's never going to be the same again, I don't think. So I think there's going to be new ways of meeting what needs to be done, and I think that your number 4 is a great way to do it, and I hope that the MTC blesses that when the time comes. But let me then ask the secretary if there's anyone in the public that would have like to speak.
We do. We have one speaker for this item. And I'm going to introduce again Mr. Pilpel. David, are you there?
I am. You can hear me okay?
We can hear you fine. Go ahead.
Great, David Pilpel. So congrats to staff on this. This is a comprehensive staff effort that meets and I think exceeds MTC requirements. It's much, much better than the SFMTA SRTP, and MTA obviously provides a lot more transit service and provided a lot less verbiage and a lot less analysis and explanation. So good work by district staff. Couple of thoughts on page 15, the reference to the paratransit service contract. Go there. On section 1.2.5, the current contract took effect February 1, 2022. I forget when it ends. I might also include the end date on page 55 and 56. And of course, the end of the report is where it gets really good. The figures 4.4, 4.5, and 4.6 have the breakouts for bus and ferry, but only one summary line at the top with total revenue. I would suggest adding a line for total expense and then total surplus or deficit, summing both bus and ferry, because that gives a more comprehensive picture of the district's total transit operation, understanding that that's with the MTC driven fiscal scenarios. But that would just help me in terms of summing bus and ferry. I was going to ask if staff or Director Rabbit, who I don't see on the line right now, could explain briefly how MTC is intending to evaluate and discuss the various agency SRTPs. So it's not just an exercise that you went through, but perhaps it informs their discussion, not just about future revenue measures, but aligning service with demand throughout the region. And finally, I hope that this feeds into efforts to update the district strategic financial plan with actual district projections rather than MTC projections, and with more specifics on actionable items to increase revenue, reduce costs, and bring the budget into balance post-fiscal cliff. Thanks very much for listening. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Madam Secretary?
We have no other speakers for this
No
item.
one, okay. Before I call for a vote, I just want to congratulate and all the staff that worked on this. And it sounds like the whole group did it, and it was you did a great job, and thank you for that. So I will now entertain a motion on item 4 to adopt the final short-range transit plan as presented by staff.
So moved.
Second.
All right, and I see Director Rabbit has his hand up. Is that right?
Yes, Madam Chair. I was just going to say
Sure.
to the previous commenter, I think MTC plans on using the, obviously we're in a volatile, unprecedented times for transit across not just the Bay Area, but really the US. And not only at the federal level, but at the local level, we want to make sure that we are having the latest and greatest statistics, data, to help formulate a path forward. And here I've mentioned to this board before, and I know that you all know this, and certainly our general manager is right on top of it. The plan in California, in order to smooth our transition to whatever our quote unquote new future is in transit, is to really go after the unallocated cap and trade funds at the state level, hopefully for a period of up to 5 years to smooth out that transition, whatever it looks like, and or I should say a rebound back to pre-COVID numbers. And I think the getting these short range transit plans from all the different agencies will only help our cause going forward as a district, but also as a region and a state to make those arguments going forward. So I just wanted to make sure that, I believe that's what the intent is going forward. And it's all for the right purposes to make sure that we, there's not going to be those massive federal outlays of money going forward, as far as we know at this point in time. And we're going to have to come up with a plan B, and this is it. So I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Did we get a motion?
Yeah.
And all right. And then do we have a second?
If you don't, I will.
Okay, great. All right. So we have a motion and a second. Madam Secretary, would you do a roll call?
Thank you. Voting on item number 4, and we are going to start with you, Chair Arnold.
Aye.
Director Conroy, Director Conroy. Okay, she may have stepped away. Director Garbarino.
Aye.
Director Giudice is absent. Director Grossball.
Aye.
Director Hernandez.
Aye.
Director Maston.
Aye.
Director Parr.
Aye.
Director Rabbit.
Aye.
Director Rodoni.
Aye.
Director Snyder.
Aye.
Director Stephanie is absent. Director Thier.
Aye.
Second Vice President Hill.
Yes.
First Vice President Cochran.
Yes.
And President Terrio.
Yes.
Thank you. You have.
Conroy's and I, did the mute come off?
There you go. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
No problem. You have 14 ayes. Thank you. All right, that completes our vote. 14 ayes.
Great, thank you very much. All right, we will move on to Agenda 5, which is a monthly report on bridge traffic, transit ridership trends, and transit service performance. The staff report begins on page 47, and Dennis will present this report. Dennis, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The written report is before you. Basically, the trends will probably be in a holding pattern for the next few months. We don't anticipate any significant changes one way or the other. Bridge traffic still remains about 15 to 20% below pre-pandemic levels overall. That is our primary funding source. So that's the genesis of a lot of our economic challenges. Commute travel is still down between 25 and 30% consistently. And we don't anticipate, that's bridge traffic, we don't anticipate that really changing until the office market in downtown San Francisco settles out. Currently, there's a 25% vacancy rate for office space in San Francisco. So we do think that'll take some time. In the winter months, tourism is less. So bus and ferry levels are also anticipated to be relatively level compared to the last month and the month before for the next couple of months as we come out the winter. And we look forward to things thawing out in the spring to see how the trends may start shaping out. And with that, I'm available to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. All right, any questions? Director Rabbit.
Dennis, I'm just curious, when you mentioned 25% vacancy, are you talking that's rental vacancy? And on top of that is the whole telecommute
Correct.
we're in. So that adds that other
correct
25 significant percentage, I would imagine, if you were to kind of have it a per capita kind of basis.
Correct. 25% of all office space in downtown San Francisco is currently unleased. The amount of unleased office space is 27 million square feet, which is equivalent to about 20 Salesforce towers. That's how much unleased office space there is in downtown San Francisco. For the remaining 75%, that tug of war is still going on between employers and employees about how many days they come into the office, do they come into the office? And for some of that space, the employers have shrunk their headcount, but they can't offload the space because there's a glut of office space. So there are some companies that have leases where they're not utilizing the space because they've shrunk their headcount. So it will take a little while to settle out. And so the current trends are not the new normal. They're the transitory phase as downtown San Francisco figures out what it wants to be when it grows up. But the morning commute bridge traffic is a good, idea of how things are. And so that's still down significantly. And so if that's down 25 to 30%, that's, not surprising compared to what we're seeing in the office market there. The good news is that this last summer tourism did bounce back. We did have, again, 2 ferry boats serving Sausalito in the afternoon in the summer and fall months. And next year is supposed to be even better for tourism. And so that does affect bridge traffic as well as bus and ferry ridership. Before the pandemic, 5% of all crossings in the summertime were rental cars. And so we have a ways to go before we see that again, but we're looking forward to next summer for that. So hopefully that's responsive to your inquiry.
Very much so. And I just wanted to, again, on top of the 25% is this whole other mix of pretty significant number, I would imagine. So I appreciate that. And obviously whatever the bridge can do. And I know that our president, in terms of our strategic plan, is contemplating those actions. I look forward to that to make sure that we can help San Francisco reopen up.
Thank you. Director Parr and then Director Hill.
Right, I'll make mine short. I guess as I was reading the transportation papers for the meeting today, I was struck, and I think this brings it up too. Traffic's down. We don't expect people to come back. We keep getting more and more calls for more and more service. And it all is just a tense ball of information and people wanting things from us that in our hearts and in our budgets, we know we really can't provide. I was struck by the number of extra equipment we would have if things don't come back. And I think when people want a bus route, for instance, that goes from a block from their house exactly to where they want to go, it's hard for us to come up with the background that helps them understand that. And that's why excuse me, I have David Rabbit's frog, I think here.
Mm.
But I think that's going to be our challenge as we go forward, is as Dick Grossbull says, you know, we had what, 8 complaints or something, 8% complaints. But it'll be a challenge for us to stand tall in the midst of complaints and help people understand what the larger organization looks like, because they only care about, well, not really. I mean, I'm not being negative about it, but basically all of us care about what affects us most. So anyway, congratulations. I look forward to a strategic plan. Good luck, Mike. I don't know how that's going to look. I mean, we're going into an abyss with a lot of challenges, and the short-term transit plan certainly pointed that out, as does the report on traffic and transit. So just thank you to the staff for always keeping that in front of us.
Thank you. Okay. Director Hill.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment that probably doesn't include the mid-market area and the Twitter building.
Got it. Okay. Anyone else? I don't see any hands. Okay. So, Dennis, thank you for your report. And I think we've gone ahead with questions or comments on this, but if anyone has anything else to ask Dennis, please do it now. Is there anyone? No, it looks like there's not. Okay, thank you very much. This concludes discussion on this item. Madam Secretary, is there anyone from the public wishing to speak on item 5?
We have no speakers on this item.
All right. So thank you. No action is required on this informational report. Madam Secretary, please continue with the agenda.
Thank you. We're going to move on to item 6, and that's a monthly report on activities related to Marin Transit. Dennis, do you have anything to add for this report?
Just that, you know, the relationship is in a great place. We're providing service for them. They're maximizing the amount of service that they can under the contract from us, and we very much appreciate that. The buses that we operate are owned by them. A handful of those buses are quite old and difficult to maintain. So Marin Transit is exploring options on how to replace those buses. They do have a short-term time crunch, so they have approached us about if we'd be willing to lease 7 of our currently parked buses to them for some short period of time. And so we'll be working with them on that, just so you know, because currently we're not fully utilizing all of our fleet, and we have the ability to do this to help them out and to be a partner. So I just wanted to make you aware that we are in discussions with them regarding that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Anything else? Okay. Is there any questions or comments before we move on then to item 6? Is there anyone in the public with that wants to comment on this?
We have no speakers, no further speakers on item 6, and we have no other speakers under item 7 for public comment.
All right, thank you. All right. So there's no action here, and so we have reached the end of the agenda. May I have
Madam Chair,
yes, yes,
privilege.
Yes.
May I ask all the other directors and staff to take themselves off mute and join me in applauding the chair for her last meeting here.
Woo!
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It's really been wonderful. I don't know how long I've been on this, but it's been a long, quite a while. And it's a great organization. You all are doing a wonderful job. No one could have thought what it was going to be like when COVID hit, and you're doing it. And so I wish the best for all of you. I'm going to miss you. And thank you. And thank you for the applause. All right. May I have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
Also move.
Second.
Thank you, Mike. Okay. Hearing no objections, this concludes the meeting of the Transportation Committee. Thank you, colleagues, and the time is 9:41.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
Judy.
Chair Arnold. By the way, it's May 2011.
What did I say?
Oh, you've been on the board since May 2011, just so you know.
Oh, 2011. Oh my gosh. Okay. That's great. Okay. Well, take care, you guys.